Welcome to the Exact Digital Podcast, the show where we dive into how digital marketing agencies are using paid media to drive real growth for their clients and for themselves. From planning to ROI and everything in between, we uncover the strategies, stories, and systems that set agencies apart. Each episode, we'll talk with agency leaders who are innovating with paid media, scaling their businesses, and delivering results that matter. Whether you're looking to expand your services or sharpen the edge of your current offerings, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this episode of Exact Marketing's podcast. I'm Tasha Grantham, and I'll be your host for the day. And today, I have Rian Chandler-Dovis with me, who's a managing partner at Brand Federation. Rian, how are you today?
So wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, Tasha.
Absolutely. Excited for you to be here. So can you tell me just a little bit about Brand Federation?
Yes, I would love to tell you about Brand Federation. We are a consultancy that focuses on organizational brand strategy. So there are a lot of firms that work in brand strategy, but our niche is specifically organizational brand strategy, meaning as opposed to product strategy. We specialize in helping organizations clarify not just the promises they can make or their maybe purpose, but the promises they can keep, those that are really inherent to the organization. And we do that through really heavy research and then a strong strategic synthesis process.
That's wonderful. That's great. Yeah. And so what do you think, why is that specialization so important, and how does that differ from some other agencies?
Yeah, it's so important because first of all, it starts with listening and that process of really getting to know both your internal stakeholders and what they are thinking and feeling about the organization and what makes it special, and those external stakeholders. Why are they loyal to you? Those that are. Why do they come to you? What has your success been built on? It's really, really important to us that all the work that we do is based in research. It's based in that listening. And so it's really inherent to the organization. What comes out is not some catchy tagline. It's not some look and feel. It's really clear direction in terms of who the organization is and why that matters. And that direction then informs everything and informs culture and the way you incentivize employees and the way that a CEO might write a letter and the messages they enforce. It informs experience, how your customers feel when they walk into a physical location, when they interact with your website or an app or customer service. And last, it informs communications. And so when you go through that process of defining, of listening, of really understanding your organization, and then you carry it through the organization, those communications, which are often the impetus for doing the work, are aligned. And when they're aligned, they're authentic. When they're aligned, they produce loyalty. They are more effective because they are saying the things that are true about your organization, and that experience is carried through every touch point. And that's what we think is brand strategy. It isn't coming up with a cool line. It isn't coming up with a cool look. It's really managing a brand through every touch point.
No, absolutely. I think that's really important. And I will tell you, I think sometimes one of the pitfalls that agencies can really get into is that as soon as a client comes to them, they feel like they have to hit the ground running and they have to be on every platform and they have to do all the things. And so I know that you've probably seen that, because honestly, what you're saying is we have to take a step back. We have to listen a lot harder, and we have to have a clear direction before we make that first move. And I think that is vital to success. And so, before those tactics and channels even to come into play, how important is it for a company to be clear on their strategy and have that direction?
I think it's absolutely critical. You bring up there the need for short wins, and oftentimes our clients come to us and they do need some short wins. But when the process starts with listening and learning, and we just take a beat and take a moment, sometimes short wins and opportunities for those come out of that listening process, and we can gain some traction while we really clarify the direction. But once that direction is clear and leadership knows how to manage to it, though all that busyness, all of that, let's get on all the channels. It comes into focus and it all works together. So you're not having this conversation over here and this conversation over here. You're not throwing things out and just A/B testing to see what's most relevant, but then what's most relevant on this channel doesn't match to this channel, doesn't match to this experience. You're making sure everything is aligned. And when it's all aligned, every single dollar that you put out, that you spend, works together in synchronized. I'm gonna re-say that. When
Yeah,
everything
no,
is aligned
yeah,
and in sync, it all works together. And so those marketing dollars count. They really work for each other, and you need to spend less to get more out of the situations. I just think the difference between, you hear the phrase, all the canoes rowing in the same direction. The difference between all those marketing dollars working together and they're sort of being disparate messages, it makes all the difference in the world in marketing. Because let's be real, like, we're getting hit by thousands of messages every day, and a single message is not usually going to stick. But when that message happens over and over and over again on different platforms through different creative that engages, then you remember. I,
absolutely.
I I love to talk about brand with Nike as an example, because I've been in rooms talking to 6,000 people or rooms talking to 6 people and said, what's an organization that stands for the inner athlete in all of us? And they always get it. I mean, the room always calls out Nike. And that's because, oof, bless you. That's
Yeah.
because it's an organization that really knows who it is, that's really managed to a brand, not only over years, but over decades. The same message comes through in all of those different really exciting creative platforms. And I think that's the importance of direction. I think it's the ability to say one thing in a room and have everybody recognize your brand.
Totally agree with that. And, that really ties into, like, I know that there are a lot of companies that are just so busy with marketing, but they just feel stuck. You know, how do you help clients move from just doing things to actually doing the right things?
Yeah. I mean, I think I sound like a broken record when I say this, but I think it's really about listening. If you're running down a marketing checklist, you will gain traction by putting money out there and messages out there, because you'll gain attention. But does that attention last? Does it build relationship? Sometimes I think as marketers, we forget that people build relationships with organizations, with our brands, the same way we build relationships with each other. And so it takes consistency for us to feel safe in our relationship. People need to show up the way we expect them to show up over and over again. And that's how you build depth. And when we're not consistent with our messages, we're confusing people. They're not building relationship with us because they don't know where to put us. Not only are we not memorable, but we don't have that sort of long-term loyalty that we're looking for out of the message. And so, checking the box without getting the message right and the direction right, it's a waste of money. Oftentimes, you can get spikes, but you can't get that long term success that you're really looking for.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I'll tell you, one of the things that we have been fighting is that we have these, what I would call legacy businesses, who for just years have done amazing business. And honestly, a lot of their stuff has just been word of mouth. And it is just because we have done good, solid business for so many years. And then now all of a sudden, it's like their business has just died. And so the way you have to explain it is it's not anything that you have changed in the way that you're doing business. But what has happened is new competitors have come on the scene and they have taken the digital marketing route. And, look, in the 80s, if you were doing any advertising at all, you were ahead of the curve. In the 2000s, if you were out there, you were still doing good. But now we are literally in an era where it feels like everybody is advertising. And because everybody is advertising, there is a lot of noise in the marketplace. And so it's not just about getting your message out there, but it's about having that authentic voice that people can really resonate with. It's like, I think back to like when I was a kid and all the little slogans, and it's like, where's the beef? And it's like you remember those things 40 years later, so it's like, how do you have that same impact in a world where people have things coming at them constantly, where they're always connected and they're always on and there's always a message coming out front? And so I totally agree when you say it doesn't just have to be a message. It has to be an authentic message, and it has to do something to trigger something so that you're creating that brand confidence, that brand continuity. And that's really important. And I think it's something that a lot of people are missing. And I will tell you that I think with AI coming on the scene, I think it's gone farther the other way. And a lot of people are losing their brand voice because they're trying to, I don't want to say cut corners. They're just trying to push the easy button for some of it. But there has to be a real strategy in place to really cut the noise. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. There's a couple of things that come to mind. One is that we work with a lot of legacy businesses too, and part of what's changed is just that people build relationships differently now than they used to. And so, there used to be a few. You could get on a few channels and put a few things forward, and then people would have a personal relationship. They would build personal relationships with people within your business, and that would lead to sort of like long-term loyalty. Now, more competition, so many more messages, and people are building relationships in very different ways. And so, you know, their their skepticism is on the rise. You can't just say something and when somebody can get on the computer and Google it. I mean, I think many years ago, it's probably been almost a decade when Audi did the Super Bowl ad empowering women. Such a great example of this. I mean, it took about 0.2 seconds for someone to get on the web and figure out they didn't have a single woman on their board and they didn't have nearly enough women in leadership positions to be writing a Super Bowl ad about empowering women. And it went viral right away. What went viral? Them not being authentic. And that's the world we live in now. Those sort of checks are right there at people's fingertips. So if you aren't coming up with not just promises you can make, but promises you can keep, if you aren't looking at the soul of your business and what has stayed the same about why people connect with it, what is different, how do I learn from that, then you're exactly right. Like you're losing the power of being able to differentiate your voice and continue to create relevance. I mean, relevance is such an important piece of the puzzle, and you become relevant by understanding how you are relevant. How are you working right now? What do people need from you? What do they look to you for when they are looking to you? And then being able to really lean into those strengths. So that's one response to what you just put forth. I think another piece of it is not falling victim to the sort of fast and easy. And it's there are fast and easy solutions that are good and they should be incorporated, right? When they're authentic, when they're coming from the right direction. And when you catch on to something that really differentiates you, like, please don't let go of it. And I think we had two like big examples of that this year in Cracker Barrel. There's an organization that just forgot to listen to the people who love it. And when they did need to modernize, and that was very clear. They needed a logo that would work in digital settings, for example. But they didn't lead the conversation around what they needed to change, and they forgot the things that really made them unique. The rocking chairs, the way they looked, that sort of I can feel at home there and safe. It didn't look like a private equity box until the rebrands, and they lost that sense of who they were. I think Southwest did something very similar. My partners just talked about this on Naughty and Nice list at Christmas. Southwest forgot that it's really hard to find differentiation in the airline category, and they had it, and they gave it up.
I
And
wholeheartedly agree. I will tell you. So, the truth is I think you either loved or hated Southwest. And I loved it. So, like, I'm one of those, I'm not a bougie flyer. Just get me on a wing and get me where I'm going. I'm good. So I loved the aspect of let's get there as economically as we can. Everybody has a good seat. You just get there. You could pay a little extra if you wanted to for the early bird stuff. And, but to go to doing the exact same thing that everybody else is doing, they truly gave away their differentiator. And I think that I agree. I was very sad to see it go. I will tell you.
it's just such a shame, because I think that that sort of differentiation and sticking to your values, there's very few things that are more important today, because of the way people build relationships, because of the amount of messages in the marketplace. And so it just all goes back to like, know what makes you special. And once you know what makes you special, it's so much easier to make all the other decisions.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And that really ties into, understanding and listening. But, tell me how important you think it is for like the leadership of a team, sales, marketing, all to be aligned around a particular strategy. And then let's talk about what happens when they're not. What does that look like?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, this is why we sort of don't talk about brand in terms of communication, and that gap that can happen that I talked about before. If the communications kind of say this thing and leadership is managing this way, and you've got sales out here saying this piece, you just end up fragmented, and you're going to end up saying different messages, and those messages may or may not be aligned with the priorities that leadership has laid out. It happens all the time. Look, like, there are huge clients that come to us and say, I know our story is being told in 15 different directions right now, and I need it to be told in one. And I think it's often the leadership that first sees that, because they're looking at sort of this holistic picture of the organization. And, that's why the first part of our work is always listening first to leadership and internal teams. Like, let's listen to the people who know this brand the best and have them talk about the things like, yeah, sure, we can read about the organization on their website, but how are people talking about it? Where is it the same and where is it different? And where is it the same, but it sparkles, but it makes makes them light up. It's what gets them out of bed in the morning. I mean, once we can codify those things, then, you know, the sales messages do have to be unique. They have to be adaptive. Sales messages always have to be adaptive. This is the conflict that sometimes happens between sales and marketing is, I want the freedom to be able to sell to the person in front of me. Marketing can be controlling sometimes, trying to keep the messages in line. But once the leadership owns those messages, once the leadership helps sales understand what needs to be at the core of them and then what they can adapt, then every time someone's talking to a client, whether it's a message marketing put together, it's something straight from leadership, or it's the sales rep that they work with, it's aligned, it's memorable, they know what to trust, and it drives deep relationships. The opposite is also true. Like, if you have somebody in sales saying something different than what's on the website, than what you've heard from leadership, and what you're hearing from communications, you don't trust the person in front of you, and it erodes the ability for sales to be effective, for marketing to be effective, and frankly for leadership to be effective.
No, absolutely. I think, one of the major things for leadership and marketing to remember is that a lot of times sales are your front line. And so those people have to be bought in to your message, hook, line, and sinker. And you guys all have to be playing on the same team. I think that's vitally important for any business. And sometimes, you can start seeing the cracks in the foundation if you don't see those things happening for sure.
100%. And I think bringing that up also reminds me that sometimes it can be hard when you're working so much in the business to remember what it's like to come and experience your business for the first time. Are you doing that through the sales channels? How consistent are they? Are you doing it through a website? Can I really figure out who you are and what you have that I need in your website? Or have you designed your website based on what you want to say versus what I need? And we see that all the time, all the time, that messages, that experiences, and even that culture is designed based on what we want to say versus what someone needs to hear. And yeah, part of that process of listening really helps us get very clear on what people need to hear,
No,
and
for
what they're.
sure. I will even take that one step further, Ryan, and I will say that, like, there have been times when we have run campaigns and we always say, we can lead a horse to water, but you can't necessarily make them drink. So, like, you're running a campaign and you've got call rail attached to it, or you've got LSA ads and you're listening to those recordings, and let's just say it's an HVAC company and it's 100 degrees outside and somebody calls the company and you're listening to the conversation and you've driven the lead, and the person gets on the phone and says, "Oh, well, it's going to be 3 days before I can get somebody to you." And then they're like, "Well, I'm going to have to figure out something else because I've got 3 babies in the house and it's 100 degrees outside. This is not going to work." And so it's like, that messaging, getting them through that funnel, getting them to the front door, that is truly where the process just starts. And so that's why I think people need to look at marketing more as it truly is like a holistic process. And it is every facet of your business. You really have to understand that once you get them there, that's only half the battle. Those things like customer service and client retention, those are all really parts of the process as well. And that's how we build that, brand confidence and customer loyalty. And I think so many people miss that critical piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I mean that particular example just brings up Chick-fil-A, which is just such a clear example of they understood that the one way to differentiate in the world of fast food, operational excellence.
Absolutely.
How do I make sure that I can, yes, getting a little bit healthier food into people, but that I make sure that the mom driving through with 3 kids in the car isn't pulling out of my drive-through line frustrated because they start screaming and she can't wait any longer. If I'm courteous and quick, I can win. And again, that comes from listening. It comes from really understanding your customer, their mindset, and their needs. Once you have that in line, and that's a great example of leadership understands that. Now I know where to put my investments. I'm going to invest in the technology and the resources to really create operational efficiency in this part of my business. 100% couldn't agree more. So important.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's pivot here a minute and let's talk about your role personally, as a managing partner. So I know that from the beginning, that is always a fluid thing. It's always changing. And so I know it's probably changed a lot over time. Can you tell me what that managing shift has kind of looked like for your agency in particular?
Yeah, sure. So we have a pretty different business model. We started in 2019, and the idea was we saw just all of this amazing talent becoming independent in the world, and we thought, let's build a consultancy where the partners stay very close to the work. So one thing we saw was in a lot of the consultancy world, the partners or principals of an organization would sell the work and then disappear, and the clients would be working with whoever they had on staff that was available. And so we said, let's have the partners stay very connected to the work, but then bring in super specialized, very senior talent to work on uh particular different challenges, and do so with the experience that they bring with that particular industry or that particular type of challenge, et cetera. We will build teams for our clients. And then we keep a small staff as well that are really strong brand strategists. So kind of pull together the best of of all the different worlds and facets, and manage that. And it's been really interesting to manage in that environment, because part of it is also built on the idea that like people should be able to do work they love, live how they want to live, and have freedom in it. So, yeah, I live in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. I've learned how to manage a company from where I want to live, raising my family, and really manage a company in this very virtual, very digital environment, and very deep relationships with people I've never sat in the same room with. That's new, that's different. Learning how to manage teams, especially teams in flux like that in a digital environment, you have to have very tight processes. You have to really have strong IP, and you have to stay very connected to everyone. It's my job as a managing partner to make sure my clients are always getting what they need. I'm in every part of the work. They're buying my expertise as well as the expertise of the company. And so, managing those processes has required new skill sets. And we're constantly learning, how do we build relationship in a virtual environment? How we make sure we take a moment to have real life personal conversations, even when we're getting in a meeting, not just to go straight into the work. How do we, show up when it really matters? How do we use in person as a tool to create memory and strengthen connection? So all of that has changed, as well as our whole industry being shaken up right now by the new technology, some of which I'm really excited about, and some of which I am really fearful about. I think what you said about AI making things even more generic is definitely happening. And so, there's an opportunity to run agencies like ours with less headcount than ever before and more profitably. We've got all this private equity interest coming in because of that opportunity. But we can't lose the creativity. We can't lose the human part of the work that makes it interesting and work and resonant and real and differentiated, because AI can't give us that. It can't give us that now, and it might not ever be able to give us that, because we as humans are complicated. We don't always make a lot of sense. Not to manage, and certainly not to inspire, which are both parts of my role, managing people and inspiring audiences. So, um, a lot has changed, and I just see it as a challenge. I see it as a super exciting challenge. How can I figure out how to have the best culture ever virtually? And when you give yourself those sort of like, pie in the sky goals, a lot can be accomplished.
Absolutely. No, I think taking the barriers off that I think a lot of times we had set for ourselves. And I think COVID really brought that to the forefront of us just being able to say, you know what, we don't have to go into the office every day. Let's look at what this could look like outside of this. And I think that, there were a few cons, but I think a lot of people found a lot of pros to it. And I think that it has opened up the landscape for talent all over the world to be able to, lend their expertise to an organization. And so I think that's vital now. And I can say that it's been a vital part of our business is, we have people all over America that I see every day on Zoom calls and they feel like such a big part of my community. And I see them once a year. So, but it's a lot of fun, to be able to, talk about the weather in the different places, in different parts of the country, on any given day. And so, yeah, so I definitely see that, we have built a lot of community, from farther away from one another, which I absolutely think is very important. And so, I love where marketing is going. I think it's headed in a great direction. I think there are so many new tools at our disposal and so many fun things that are happening. And so I'm really excited about the marketplace. I think that there's a lot of opportunity coming about. And I think businesses are going to see the ones that will really take advantage of the tools that are at their disposal right now can really see their business and their growth models flourish. And that's exciting to me. Like I love, I say one of the biggest things that brings me the greatest joy is watching the little guys no longer be the little guys because they have scaled and grown to a point to where they still think they're the little guys, but they're really not anymore. And so that's a lot of fun to watch that actually transpire. So building those relationships and watching that happen, I think is a lot of fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I do think it sounded like I was being a little bit of a curmudgeon there, worried about AI in the future, but there are some things about it that I'm super excited about, especially in research. I mean, I think we've had barriers in research for a really long time. People feeling comfortable with other people and being really open, language barriers, all kinds of even just investment barriers. How many people can I practically listen to? Research is expensive. And all those barriers are changing. People will tell things to an AI that they wouldn't be comfortable telling another person that didn't look like them or have similar lived experiences to them. So we're getting more honesty in research. We're getting more scale. An AI can interview someone for a lot less expensive than a person can interview someone. And an AI can switch languages in the middle of an interview if someone needs to be more comfortable and it feels more comfortable in another language communicating. I mean, those sort of advancements allow us to learn even more and make even smarter decisions. And so I do think that we're at this beautiful time that if we figure out how to make this technology work for us and really work for us instead of replace us, then we can do amazing things with it.
Absolutely. So I will tell you, being in digital marketing, I have people come to me all the time and they say, "What do you think about AI?" And my tagline is always use the strongest caution with the highest level of optimism. And that is truly how I feel about it. There are some strong cautions that we have to put in place and be very aware of. But I do think that there is this, when you start thinking of all of these things that are diagnosable now and curable now, and that AI is going to handle a lot of that, and it's able to take so much information and put it all in one place and spit out all this information that would take us years and years and years to do. I think that is quite fascinating, and I think that there's a lot of hope for humanity in that. And so I just tell everybody use strongest caution, but also have high optimism for what the future could hold. So, yeah. So to finish us off, if you could give brand leaders one piece of honest, just no BS advice about communications right now, what would it be?
Be true to yourself. Like, really think about what that means. Really, spend the time to listen. I know I've said the word listen like 400 times in this interview, but really spend the time to listen and understand what it is that is meaningful about your organization. And then leverage that to make sure that you're managing it and you're amplifying it, because those are the things that are going to truly differentiate you, the things that are true to you. The worst decision that could be made is trying to say something cool and catchy that's not true. It's not there's not going to be um any lasting benefit of that. So yeah, listen, be true to yourself, find your confidence within what makes you special and amplify that.
Absolutely. I love it. And lastly, if anybody feels like Brand Federation could be a good fit for them, what is the best way to get in touch with you guys, Ryan?
Absolutely. Go to our website, brandfederation.com. There you can reach out to me directly on our About page. You can reach out to either one of my partners. We're also on LinkedIn. You can come find us, and we're breaking into Instagram too. We've been a little bit cautious about making sure our social media channels were providing value in the world, and we're really excited for the value we're going to bring on Instagram. So those channels are the easiest ways to reach out. My information is out there, and I would love to hear from anyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and you are a wonderful asset. So I've enjoyed the conversation so much.
Me too, so much, Tasha. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.